Welcome to Cine Bite. Discover the Evil's Loop, 2023. Indonesia's latest box office hit that dominated charts for 4 weeks with $68 million in its first month. This thrilling tale isn't meant for daylight. Grab your friends, tag them, and share the chills. With its bald head theme, no one will sleep soundly after watching. The story begins with the strange disappearance of Sari, a middle school student. How? A young man with psychic powers who can see the past by touching objects is approached by Rita, a concerned woman. Sari vanished mysteriously 2 days ago. Despite the school being surrounded by surveillance cameras, none captured her. Police searched the area but found nothing. Rita believes Sari may have been taken by forest-dwelling dwarves, leaving Hao to uncover the truth behind her eerie disappearance. Rita sought Hao's help to use his abilities in finding Sari. Under Mr. and Mrs. Suja's guidance, Hao visited the classroom where Sari vanished. The teacher explained that Sari was reviewing a lesson that night when she mysteriously disappeared. Hao picked up Sari's scissors, her personal item, and was transported back to that evening. Sari had returned to the classroom alone, turned on the sewing machine to finish her work, and just as she began sewing, a violent knock startled her at the door. Sari thought it was a classmate and didn't lock the door, but the knocking persisted. She stepped out, finding no one in the corridor. Assuming it was a carpenter fixing furniture, she returned to her work. Suddenly, the classroom lights went out. Thinking it was a power outage, Sari packed her things to leave, only to see her long skirt mysteriously transform into a ghostly shroud. The eerie sight terrified Sari, and she fled the classroom in panic. Stopping in the corridor, looking back, she saw nothing and tried to convince herself it was her imagination. As pricked by a needle, Hao suddenly felt droplets falling on his head. In a trance, Hao saw Sari floating in the air before being thrown into a dry well. Alarmed, he asked the teachers if there was a well nearby. One recalled an old, sealed well behind the school in a grove. Hao quickly led everyone there, finding the well behind a massive banyan tree. Removing the cover, they discovered Sari inside, unconscious but alive. Using a rope, they carefully pulled her out. As they prepared to leave, Hao caught sight of a figure wrapped in a white shroud, silently staring at him, sending a chill through the air. Hao turned back, but the figure had vanished. He hurriedly left the well, unaware that he had provoked a powerful evil. He dozed off against Rita on the way home. The next morning, Hao visited his grandfather's grave, the source of his psychic abilities. As a child, he had learned witchcraft from his grandfather but accidentally opened a window during a ritual, leading to a tragic failure that cost his grandfather's life. Determined to understand the undead, Hao pursued physics and after years of study, theorized that the soul is a form of quantum energy. Hao, contemplating the quantum realm as the key to spiritual phenomena, didn't notice the sound of digging nearby while mourning his grandfather. Turning, he saw an old man digging a pit and gesturing for help. Curious, Hao approached, but before he could react, the man raised a sign and suddenly pushed him into the pit. When Hao regained consciousness, he found himself wrapped in white cloth, lying in the pit as the old man methodically began covering it with soil. Hao suddenly woke up on his sofa at home. Confused, his mother explained he had fallen off his scooter and Rita had brought him back. Relieved, Hao realized the terrifying scene was just a dream. However, as he headed to his room to rest, he noticed a trail of muddy footprints on the bedroom floor. The next morning, Hao discussed his dream with Rita. Suspecting Sari's vengeful spirit had been angered. While he pondered, he spotted the old man again and quickly followed him to a fitting room. At the door, Hao noticed muddy footprints. He tried to pull the curtain, but no matter how hard he tried, it stretched endlessly. Snapping back, everything around him had returned to normal. But his certainty grew. He had angered a sinister force. As he pondered his next steps, Rita called to inform him that Sari often went into frenzies and even harmed herself. Rita suspected an evil spirit was tormenting her, and only the one who caused it can resolve it. Hao and Rita returned to the school and learned from the teacher that a student mysteriously vanishes every 4 years. Over the past 30 years, 2 students had disappeared before Sari, and neither was ever found. The teacher shared a security guard's tale that the school was built over a mass grave, sparking suspicions of vengeful spirits. To uncover the truth, Hao sought out the retired guard. From the man's revelations, they learned the school wasn't just a mass grave, it was once the territory of a cult, of which he had been a member. The evil spirit that abducted Sari was none other than Walisdi. Obsessed with mastering black magic, he sacrificed countless followers, sparing no one, not even pregnant women, from his cruel rituals. The High Priest Walisdi's dark ambition led him to trap 49 souls, but his black magic wasn't enough. Seeking unity with nature, he sacrificed himself, instructing his followers to kill him and bury him under a banyan tree. Every 10 years, his spirit hunts 7 souls tied to the music industry to revive. After his death, the banyan grove became a school, and his cult disbanded, leaving only a believer who became a guard. At first, the guard doubted Walisdi's power, but when 2 students vanished, he believed. To stop the priest's magic, they planned to unearth the body and sever the ropes binding his soul. Hearing Grandpa's words, Hao resolved to confront the high priest. Grabbing tools, they hurried to the school. As they reached the back mountain, a loud crash sounded from the trunk. Hao stopped to investigate but found nothing unusual inside. Just as he prepared to drive off, the car refused to start. Frustrated, Hao adjusted the mirror and glanced at it. At that moment, a chilling sight caught his eye in the rearview mirror, a horrifying figure staring back at him. As they turned, the high priest vanished before they could react, followed by a knock above. Fortunately, the car finally started to run, and Hao sped down the mountain road with the grandfather. Reaching the back mountain, the old man went to grab a shovel from the trunk but found the high priest hiding inside. Sprayed with a strange liquid, the old man collapsed. Under this circumstance, Hao took the ring from him and continued alone. Holding the ring, he recalled the sacrifice decades ago when believers killed the high priest, wrapped him in white cloth, and buried him near the banyan tree. As Hao prepared to dig at the site, the high priest suddenly appeared behind him. The high priest dragged Hao to a dry well, targeting him for his rare soul power, equivalent to 5 people's strength. As Hao was also born in the British music industry, devouring his soul would help the priest reach great consummation. Just as Hao was about to drown as water gushed into the well, Rita arrived. She found him unresponsive despite her desperate calls. Acting quickly, she threw her garlic necklace into the well. Hao was awakened. Hao woke up and quickly led Rita to the banyan tree. Together, they drew a circle on the ground, tied a simple knot, and began digging. After reaching 2.5 meters, they uncovered the high priest's body, appearing as fresh as if buried yesterday. Hao took scissors to cut the ropes binding the priest but found them unyielding. Rita then noticed a knife beside the body. Hao carefully lifted the high priest, allowing Rita to grab the knife. To their relief, the blade easily sliced through the first rope. As Hao attempted to cut the second rope, heavy rain suddenly poured, breaking the seal. Rita desperately sprinkled salt, But the rain was too strong, and the seal failed. The high priest, no longer restrained, awakened and appeared beside Hao, causing dismay to them. Seeing the collapsed pit, Rita rushed forward. Thankfully, the nearby soil was soft, and she quickly dug Hao out. As they prepared to continue, the high priest reappeared, grabbing Rita and pulling her up with a menacing grip. Seeing Rita attacked, Hao tried to resist, but the high priest's immense power left him helpless. At that moment, Hao remembered the knife and quickly cut the final rope. With no bindings left, the high priest's soul could no longer stay in the human world, ultimately turning to ashes and vanishing. This is the plot of the 2023 Indonesian horror movie The Devil's Loop. While the movie is overall impressive, the ending felt somewhat rushed. If you find the video interesting, please give it a like. Click on the subscribe button in order not to miss the incoming video. Goodbye and see you in the next video.